the owner and editor of the Whet blog and podcast. This episode will tackle all things Michelin Guide Florida and the upcoming ceremony as I see it. Who am I exactly? The short answer, I am a Michelin and Miami dining enthusiast. My perspective comes from the many Michelin restaurants I have dined in the US and abroad. Spoiler alert, that now totals 272 stars. That's a whole lot of miles and calories. Except for Bennu, Addison, and the newly added Smith, that count includes 10 of the 13 US 3-star locations. It does not make me an expert, but I do have a lot of perspective when comparing other cities to Miami. I use the Michelin Guide as just that, a guide. I enjoy the journey, even when disagreeing with the Michelin Guide's selections, which happens. There's something special about the guide, though, and more often than not, following the guide has led me to exceptional meals of a lifetime that were worth that special journey. Before diving in, I want to provide more history for those new to the Michelin Guide and the Whet palette. Since 2014, before launching this podcast, I closely looked at our city's potential for a guide. Every couple of years, I wrote an article about the Michelin Guide Miami and studied our potential for one. I always had faith it would happen in Miami, so I was not surprised when it was finally confirmed they would be launching in Miami. You can find all of those articles on my website, thewetpalette.com. If you want more Michelin coverage on this podcast, episodes 3, 13, 26, and 29 will give you just that and offer more detailed, deep, geeky dives on this topic. There you will find more scoop into the Michelin Guide facts and tidbits you might not know and that I will not be covering again today. I recently interviewed Visit Florida's Dana Young on the Michelin Guide Florida's current impact and future. That's episode 41. I was blessed to attend the ceremonies in 2022 and 23. The first occurred in Orlando. The second was in Miami this last year. This year, the Michelin Guide heads to Tampa on April 18th. For whatever reason, I don't notice as much excitement as in the past years. Maybe because the first one was uncharted territory and the second one was here. Miami may be saturated with Michelin everything, or maybe South Florida is a little jaded. Not that it would surprise me, but I would caution against it. This is Florida's third year with a guide, and the first contract with the Michelin Guide is up. That means negotiations resume for the next contract, as Dana Young explained in episode 41. I am hopeful and excited they will agree that Broward County and Palm Beach will be added next. Also, before I go all in with this episode, some disclaimers. It should be apparent I keep it pretty real around my blog and social media. Sometimes that means I am not the most PC person and I don't want to be. Owning a blog for the last 11 years and a new podcast only in its third season, which is all about my dining and travel experiences chosen and paid for by me, means I can steer my content as I please without owing anyone anything. Freedom to just be. I am not affiliated with the Michelin Guide in any way. I also do not have all the answers, other than quotes I will share directly from the Michelin Guide website or facts. I have researched everything I will discuss is my opinion based on my experience dining at Michelin-starred restaurants throughout the US and Europe. Okay, let's begin. The ratings. The Michelin Guide states restaurants may receive 0 to 3 stars for the quality of their food based on quality of the ingredients used, mastery of flavor and cooking techniques, the personality of the chef in his cuisine, value for money, and consistency between visits. 1 star means a very good restaurant in its category. This in particular is important to note for this episode. I have established that the US and Europe greatly vary in what a 1 star looks like. The US 1 stars are the wild, wild west and anything goes. It's primarily different in Europe, but the phrase in its category is all we need to know. It would help if Michelin would disclose what categories those are, but they don't. However, the Surf Club and Los Felix are not in the same category, but in Michelin's terms, they combine many different types of restaurants and award them within their mysterious categories. 2 stars, excellent cooking, worth a detour. 3 stars, exceptional cuisine, worth a special journey. Bib Gourmand, great quality cooking at a great price. The 2s and 3s in the US are pretty uniform in style. The Michelin Guide also gives out some special awards. We do have some of these in Florida, but not all yet. Green Stars identified restaurants at the forefront of the industry when it comes to their practices regarding sustainable gastronomy. They also have Chef Mentor, Young Chef, Service Sommelier, Exceptional Cocktail, and Pastry Chef awards. Let's start with the basic questions based on this current list. Do I think any restaurants will lose a star? No. There is also a difference between what I think will happen and what I think should happen. Michelin should remove Los Felix, but I don't think Michelin will drop Los Felix. At least not this year. It's only the third year. They may save their bold moves for next year with the new contract in place. Shocker, but I still strongly feel Los Felix does not belong as a one-star restaurant representing Miami. I will not let it go, so bear with me. Is it a very good restaurant in its category, as the Michelin Guide states? Again, what category is that exactly? I wish Michelin would just dish it out. Casual Mexicanish, Latin Americanish? It's confusing. The guide mentions online that it is highly creative Mexican cooking. There's just no way. They also mention the raw chocolate tart, which hasn't been on the menu since its first several months when they were open. So I don't understand. I struggle to find just one phenomenal thing about Los Felix that warrants a solid star. The food is just okay, not terrible. I'm not saying it's awful, but just not very good enough to make it into a Michelin Guide. It's also tiny. The tables are uncomfortably next to each other. I don't find the vibe special, especially in the hotter summer months when the front door is constantly open and it's 90 degrees outside. The Michelin Guide describes it as modern, organic, and youthful. Youthful. Is it because the youth doesn't care to bump elbows with strangers while dining, sweating your ass off in July with a door open? Yo no entiendo. It's quite a mystery. Maybe good restaurant in its category means the category of restaurants that they add to confuse diners and keep this argument going. Will the guide move Los Felix down to a big gourmand? They absolutely should, but I am not necessarily holding my breath over it. The other one is El Cielo. I haven't made my way back to El Cielo since 2018. I was not a fan of it then, and I have considered a return visit, but at the base price of $289 per person, it's a tough pill to swallow to go see if they improved for that amount. I am still waiting to receive favorable feedback from anyone visiting, so I remain discouraged from returning. So if you're that random diner who has gone and loved it, please let me know. And I mean genuinely gone and loved it, not comped or anything like that. I have nothing to go on, and I just don't have $600+ sitting around for this experiment. I have plenty of other places to spend that on if I wanted to that do not involve washing my hands with chocolate and silly smoke and mirror tricks. Which ones to rank up? Do I think Michelin will rank anyone up? No. Should they? Yes. This is a reminder that when I am listing these, I am thinking of the established pattern set forth by the Michelin Guide in the US, specifically in Miami. And you cannot deny a pattern. It's not opinion, it's fact. Regardless of what is said, it does not compare to Europe. I had the blessing of experiencing 1 and 3 stars in Italy and Spain recently, and wow, the ones there could easily be United States 2s. Considering that this is the Florida Guide within the US bubble, I went through the list of 18 bibs to see if any could or should be bumped to 1 star. Based on that, I want Sitsum to move from a bib to 1 star. I can't think of a restaurant that has been working any harder pre, during, and post-Michelin. It's more than just the guide being here. It's just what Sitsum does. They always keep moving and innovating. In Michelin's own words, from their online point of view, they say, the cooking is original and gutsy and makes delicious sense. Doesn't it make sense to move them up? I was heartbroken to see them remain a bib in the last ceremony. Nonsense. Complete nonsense. I would also bump up Brasserie Laurel, Lamar, and Fiola from recommended restaurants to a 1 star from the list of Michelin recommended restaurants without a star or a bib. How are those 3 restaurants just recommended? But Los Felix has an actual 1 star in their name. They all have tasty menus and have worked tirelessly to provide beautiful experiences, food that is memorable and well executed. Lamar and Fiola have also been consistent for years in Miami. Years. In Miami math, 1 year equals at least 3 regular years. These places are well thought out and executed concepts with cool vibes, excellent service, and delicious food. Distinguished for sure. I would also rank up MICHELIN to a bib. Right now, they remain in limbo on the recommended list of what Michelin now calls good cooking. Also, let's talk about Naue. Here are some facts about Naue. It should have been included in the guide since the first Florida edition. I understand the rumor is that the inspectors couldn't get a reservation at the time. They had COVID restrictions where you had to do a full buyout, and then only 4 diners were allowed at a time. But that changed in 2022 and most of last year. As of right now, it has been temporarily closed but will reopen soon. But it's important to know that before Hidden, before the Den, Miami had Naue. It has been the leader in omakase since 2009. Good enough that I always said they could have led with 2 stars for Florida. One of Michelin Miami's greatest mysteries is how they can continue to be overlooked. Ranking up from 1 to a 2 or 2 to a 3. Will Michelin rank a restaurant from a 1 to a 2? No. Should they? Also no. Why not? No one stands out enough, and this is in my opinion, no one stands out enough to be bumped up to a 2 or even less to a 3. What have I found common in the US 2 stars that we lack in South Florida? Service. Although the Michelin Guide states that they only rate food, the pattern exists. Sorry, not sorry. It's there. There is no casual service at all ever at the 2-star level. The restaurant can be casual, but the service remains proper. Not formal, but proper and highly performative. You never see the staff sweat. It's almost like an acting class. They always keep character. They also all communicate with each other as a team using hand signals, head nods, and tricks so that the guests usually never hear things being said. Someone seems cold? Oh, a pashmina just magically appears. You want sparkling water? How did the person pouring appear within seconds and know what to pour without hearing it? Also, most restaurants research who is dining and keep notes for when guests return. Of course, there are exceptions, like Momofuku Ko in New York, which closed last year, by the way. They were casual overall in all aspects, but held on to a 2 for a long time. But I am discussing the many similarities of the 2s I have experienced, and because of that, I don't see anyone else in Miami moving up to a 2. Not now, and maybe not for a couple of more years. I think maybe even year 5. Robuchon is our only 2-star right now, and I don't foresee them being moved up to a 3. They have been consistent with every one of my visits except one random time in 2022, so there's that, but they are not like any 3 in the US. I love them, but I don't see them moving up. I see all the current ones keeping their stars: Ariette, Stubborn Seed, Boyade, Le Jardiniere, Cote, The Den, Tambourine, and the Surf Club. I would have preferred them to have evolved the menu or operations more, but they kept things steady. One exception for me would be Le Jardiniere, but I needed to visit more often to catch any interruptions in their performance. My one visit last year was solid. Tambourine Room, they've had some kitchen shakeups and rattled a bit, but not enough to lose a star. And the Surf Club, obviously I adore them too. To be honest, I have heard and seen photos from a couple of diners where the Surf Club wasn't consistent. My visits have all been spectacular, so there's that. But in the big picture, I don't think this year would be a year where it would get taken away. Not them and not anyone. But everyone should be on alert for 2025 because that's when I see things changing. Let's talk about Michelin's new additions. This one came with some wild cards and it can go any way. Let's discuss. Entre Nos, Kaori, Matis, Ogawa, Osobuco, Pez, Shingo, and Tam Tam. I was not surprised to see Entre Nos, Shingo, and Matis on the list. Where will they be placed though? Shingo could be a new star for Miami, based on Hidden receiving a star while Shingo was leading, and that Shingo, I think, tops Hidden now. That's my honest opinion. I just reviewed Shingo on episode 43. Take a listen for the details. It's fabulous. Entre Nos, reviewed in episode 42, is lovely and has beautiful potential. Are they too new? I think so. I would give them more time to build consistency. In style, it's on par with Lion and the Rambler. So if Michelin gives them a star, I think it should equally reward Lion and the Rambler. So this one's a up in the air situation. Matis. Well, Valerie Chang is a superstar, Michelin or not. I'm a huge fan. The prices have been going up there, so I wonder if Matis is now priced out of the bib category. And if it's going in the 1-star category, then we default again to Michelin's definition of it being a good restaurant within its category. Simply put, it is a good restaurant in any category you want to place it in. It's hard for me to remain subjective on this one because I adore Matis so much. Every experience has been delicious with vibe and service to match. For reference though, Itame, also by Chang and her brother Nando, had a bib, but it got dropped by the guide when it pumped up its chef's tasting menu and never moved up to a star. So all of it is puzzling. Ogawa. I have yet to visit. The ambitious pricing, starting at $350 per person immediately within opening, has kept me away. I wasn't a huge fan of Hayakawa, and that's where I first had Masa's omakase, so it's yet to be one I run to. It was good, but at the time, not impressive enough for me to return. I will have to let Michelin lead on this one. It does seem they favor high-end omakase spots, so maybe they do. And in their description, Michelin says it's an omakase that stuns. Well, with a comment like that, it sounds like it would be an in. Would it stun and not be awarded a Michelin star? Kaori. I loved it when Chef Raymond Lee was there, but then he left and I waited to return. I don't know when Michelin visited and if it was when he was there. All that to say, I can vouch for it while Chef Lee was there, but I haven't tried the new version, so I have no idea where this one might place. Tam Tam, reviewed on episode 34. It's fine. It could go in the bib category based on price. It was hot upon opening and Miami couldn't get enough of it, but the 305 obsession, like everything in Miami, has died down. I would be shocked if it got a star. So if Michelin is going for the shock factor, this would be it. It could stay on the recommended list and call it a day, but that's just me. Osobuco, recently reviewed on episode 42, was another Michelin wildcard. I went after Michelin named it an addition after only being open for a few months. A shocker given it is not anything we don't already have in Miami. You will have to listen to episode 42 for all the details. Overall, it's okay and could be recommended, but I don't see what they are doing that is so impressive to merit such a quick addition. I suppose I could go back in the future and try their counter tasting menu, which they do offer, and I might. On their online review of it, Michelin states that Osobuco has a weekend DJ who knows how to work a room and seal the deal. So maybe it fits in with Michelin's Miami size version of itself. I mean, I really have no idea. You know who else has an occasional DJ? Los Felix. Just saying. Who can name another Michelin restaurant in Italy with a DJ? If you can, please let me know. I would love to compare them and learn more. Pez. That was an unfortunately timed addition given that it is listed as temporarily closed. And I hate it because it's just not a good look for Michelin. It makes them seem out of touch with our city. You know, I never visited, so I don't have a food opinion on them. But for what it's worth, I reached out to Pez. I was told they closed a few days before the announcement. Apparently, the current construction on Flagler Street was the number one cause for their decision to close that location. Sales dropped more than 50% while still paying full rent and expenses, and it became unsustainable. The immediate plan is to host a pop-up in New York City during the summer after Memorial Day, while they look for a smaller space in Miami and reopen hopefully by year's end. So good luck to them. To summarize, I am not expecting too much change until next year. Last year brought only one new star, and I think this year might bring up to 3 new stars. Shingo, Matis, Entre Nos, and Ogawa have the strongest chances, especially Shingo and Ogawa. There's plenty of room for a couple of shockers from Michelin. Would it be a Michelin Guide ceremony without some controversy? The ceremony will take place in Tampa on April 18th. Doors to the ceremony open at 6:30 p.m. I don't know if they will do a live video on YouTube like last year, but you can sign up for alerts on their channel and Facebook account. As of this recording, April 8th, they have not announced it on Facebook yet. There were many audio and teleprompter issues last year. I hope they have looked into that closely so the ceremony goes off without any problems. God willing, I will also be there and post on my Instagram stories as much as possible. While we wait for the reveal, let's end with a look into some fundamental Michelin guidelines and facts many aren't familiar with or choose to overlook. If you listen to anything closely here, this is it. I have written and talked about this before, but in case you missed it, here it is again. In the United States, the Michelin Guide is only published in California, New York City, and Westchester County, Chicago, Colorado, Florida, Georgia, and Washington, D.C. That's it. Only restaurants in these areas can authentically claim to have a starred restaurant. Restaurant inspectors do not look at the interior decor, table setting, or service quality when awarding stars. These are instead indicated by the number of covers it receives, represented by the fork and spoon symbol. The cover symbol is for comfort and quality, and it ranges from quite comfortable to luxury in the traditional style. That said, the online version of the guide doesn't list the covers, and I am not sure why not. There is no such thing as a Michelin-starred chef. Having worked in a Michelin-starred restaurant or even owning a string of 3-star establishment doesn't make one a Michelin-starred chef because the term doesn't technically exist. The Michelin Guide awards stars to restaurants based on the quality of food they serve and not to individuals. Meals are often the collective effort of an entire team and not one man or woman alone. Chefs can't take off with stars, nor do the stars transfer for another restaurant owned by the same chef. If a chef who runs a Michelin-starred restaurant in Spain opens a new restaurant in Japan, this does not automatically make the latter a Michelin-starred restaurant. The Michelin Guide isn't only about fine dining and fancy restaurants. Globally, stars have been awarded to a wide spectrum of restaurants. Chefs can't technically return a star. They can disagree, tantrum, and announce to the world that they're returning a star, but if the Michelin Guide wants you in it, they keep you in it. It's fully up to them to not give you a star the following year. It's not up to the chef. End of story. If you made it this far, congratulations. You truly are Miami and Michelin obsessed like me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please take a second to rate the podcast on Apple or Spotify if that's where you listen. It helps local podcasts like mine break through the almighty algorithm. Okay, that's it for me today. Enjoy this series of Michelin podcast episodes and blog articles from my passionate Miami palate, the Whet palate. I will be back with a follow-up episode once the results are in. Until then, ciao.